morning, everyone, and welcome to our 36th anniversary of the Dr. Martin Luther King Junior Celebration here at the Inner City Cultural League. We are excited for all of you who have decided to join us today here in person, and also for those who are viewing online. We appreciate you. Please like and share our video today with someone as we continue to honor the legacy and the dream of Dr. Martin Luther King. I am Michael Brown, if I did not say that, Artistic Director of the Inner City Cultural League. And I've been doing this for a little bit now. I kind of got left in charge from, over the last few years since our founder has taken a little bit of a back seat, but I'm going to carry on as long as I can carry on our traditions here at the Inner City Cultural League. So first we want to thank Mr. Carlos Holmes for our musical prelude. He's been doing this for us for many years, and we appreciate him to continue to stand with us and do that. At this time, I'm going to ask if you would all rise. We're going to have the posting of our colors of the United States of America by our U.S. Guard for the United States Air Force.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
You may be seated. We want to again thank the United States Air Force Color Guard, and also that wonderful rendition of our national anthem by Reverend Deborah Green from Calvary Baptist Church. Yes. I've been listening to her since I was a little boy growing up in Calvary Baptist Church, and she still is doing it just the same. Nothing's changed. We're going to go ahead and move on in our program. At this time, we're going to have an invocation by our very own founder, Baba Reuben Salters.
Let us pray the invocation. In the name of God, we ask your celebration. We are your servants, Lord, and we need your presence today to complete this phase of your plan. Dear God, give us your peace, give us your presence, and give us your fortitude as we strive for perfection in an imperfect world. Let us be cognizant of the fact that this is an imperfect world and that only you can make it plain and simple and understandable. We seek your presence, God. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Bible Salters. And as we're going to move on at this time, we're going to have a poem, The Bridge Builder, by Al-Haj Ali Alim.
Thank you. God bless you. My name is Al-Haj Ali Alim. The name of the poem is The Bridge Builder by William Allen Jungule. An old man going a long highway came at the evening, cold and gray, to a chasm, vast and deep and wide, through which was flowing a sullen tide. The old man crossed in the twilight dim. The sullen stream had no fear for him, but he turned when safe on the other side and built a bridge to span the tide. Old man, said a fellow pilgrim near, you are wasting your time, your strength, with building here. Your journey will end with the end of the day. You never again will pass this way. You crossed the chasm, deep and wide. Why build this bridge at evening tide? The builder lifted his old gray head. Good friend, in the path I have come, he said, there followed after me today a youth whose feet may pass this way. The chasm that has been as naught to me, to that fair-haired youth may pitfall be. To him, he too must cross in the twilight dim. Good friend, I am building this bridge for him. I would like to say thank you to Mr. Reuben Salters for building this bridge for me, the fair-haired youth following after him, for us. God bless all.
Thank you, Mr. Brother Alim. He's been around and working in our community for quite some time. We appreciate him taking the time to be here and giving us that poem today. We are going to move right along. We have another musical selection, Precious Lord, by, again, the wonderful Reverend Deborah Roland.
Take my hand, lead me on, let
Amen. Yes. At this time, we're going to have the Honorable Dr. Don Blakey come, who is going to do a brief introduction of our distinguished dignitary and guest today.
Thank you and good afternoon. It is my pleasure to present some very special people who have messages or greetings to bring to you. Appearing in the order, Governor John Carney, Governor of the State of Delaware, U.S. Senator Thomas Carper, U.S. Senator Chris Coons, U.S. Congresswoman Lisa Blunt Rochester, Capital City Mayor, the Honorable Robin Christensen, and the State of Delaware Insurance Commissioner, Trinidad Navarro. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Delaware Insurance Commissioner Trinidad Navarro. I'm proud to join you virtually today to celebrate the legacy of one of our nation's foremost heroes, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and to come together as a community united in an effort to continue Dr. King's important work. I want to share our gratitude to the entire Sankofa Inner City Cultural League for working so hard to adapt today's event into a safe virtual celebration, and to thank you to everyone who's participating in today's event. In the time since we last came together, a lot has happened. 2021 was a difficult year. There is a great divide among Americans, and this has continued over the last couple of years. But our basic tenets of democracy have been under attack. Voting rights are being challenged throughout our country. Now, Dr. King led the fight for voting rights, or for the Voting Rights Act, signed by President Johnson back in 1965. Here we are again, facing the challenges for the basic right to vote, and for each vote to be counted, particularly in the communities of color. We saw hundreds of thousands of deaths due to COVID-19 and witnessed how the pandemic's health and economic impacts both hit communities of color the hardest. But we must keep on moving. We must keep on fighting, addressing these challenges head on. Dr. Martin Luther King Day is a day off. It's a day on, not a day off. It's the only federal holiday designated as a day of service. We honor our hero when we serve our neighbors, when we strive to be our better selves, when we contribute to the world's work towards equality. During the pandemic, our collective action is needed more now than ever. So today, and every day, find a way to serve, whether it's donating your time, or donating your money, or donating blood, or donating food, or even just helping out a neighbor. Whether you have a lot or little, everyone has the capacity to give back and to serve our community, just as everyone has the capacity to love. As Dr. King once said, life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? Let us answer that question with our actions each and every day. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Governor John Carney. I want to thank the Inner City Cultural League for inviting me to join you today for what is one of the long-standing events on this Martin Luther King holiday. We are here to celebrate and honor the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Though we are unable to gather in person this year, it's important that we take time to come together virtually to recognize the work of Dr. King and to celebrate his legacy with a day of service. I was still a young boy when Dr. King was assassinated in 1968. In many ways, it's hard to believe that it was more than 50 years ago. But we don't have to look far to see how Dr. King's legacy continues to shape our lives here in Delaware. This pandemic has made evident the deep inequities that stem from racial injustice in our state. It's been more important than ever for every Delawarean to fight for a more just future. We have made good progress in many ways in the fight for racial justice here, but there is still more work to be done. I was proud to join members of the Legislative Black Caucus last fall as I signed into law a package of criminal justice reform bills that were part of the Justice for All agenda. Our new legislative session began last week, and I look forward to continuing this work in partnership with the General Assembly. The most important priority I have over the next 3 years as governor is to improve educational opportunities for children of color in the city of Wilmington and across our state. We owe all children and their families our best efforts to secure a better future. It's clear that we have a lot more to do, but I am confident that we will continue to make progress. One thing that Dr. King said in one of his sermons has stuck with me, especially over the last 2 years. Life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? This is a message that I hope remains in the minds of every Delawarean, not just today, but throughout the year. Dr. King also said that everybody can be great because anybody can serve. This day of service is the best way to celebrate Dr. King's legacy. Once again, it's a privilege to be with so many here today who are making our state a better place for all of us. Let's continue to work together to make Delaware more just and equitable for everyone. Thank you very much once again, and God bless you on this very special day.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me to participate in this event to celebrate the dream of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I'd like to start off by thanking Ruben Salters, Michael Brown, and everyone else at the Inner City Cultural League for all of your work in the community and for putting this event together. This year, I know we're all missing the normal performances and presentations that we usually have at this event. The songs and art of the movement for civil rights throughout our history are legendary, and there is no better way to honor it by passing it on to future generations. Work that you do every day. I'm reminded of a song that they sang during the civil rights movement that we still sing in our churches and in the community today. Walk together, children, don't you get weary. Right now, you may be feeling a little weary, whether it's COVID or just the current situation. But I'm going to tell you the way that we get rid of weary is to walk together. While this day falls around the same time every year, Martin Luther King Day could not have come at a more urgent time than this year. A critical piece of the dream, equal voting rights for all, is being threatened in state houses across the country. In 1957, as the government was dragging its feet implementing the Brown versus Board of Education decision, Dr. King gave his famous "Give us the ballot" speech. Dr. King told the crowd, "We come to Washington today pleading with the President and members of Congress to provide a strong, moral, and courageous leadership for a situation that cannot permanently be evaded." I hear Dr. King's call today. Dr. King also called the denial of the right to vote, quote, "a tragic betrayal of the highest mandates of our democratic tradition." That is what makes this a pivotal moment for me and my colleagues on Capitol Hill, because as the next election draws even closer, the need to pass voting rights legislation is only amplified. That is why I was proud to accompany President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris down to Atlanta, Georgia, the cradle of democracy, for so long, and was represented by my colleague and friend, the late, great John Lewis. President Biden's speech laid out how high the stakes are in this moment and why the time to act is now. I'm sure that many on this call, if it was not you, then maybe your parents or grandparents were eligible voters before the Voting Rights Act and had to deal with that suppression. It saddens me that we are here again today, but motivates me to know that we stand on the shoulders of generations of ancestors who won their voting rights. As we celebrate the dream today, we must also be clear-eyed about the fact that it has not yet been fully realized. As members of the King family have recently said, today should not be a day of fun, breakfasts, and joyous celebrations, but a day of recommitment to use all of our might to make sure that Dr. King's dream is achieved. Achieved for clean water, for criminal justice reform, for healthcare, for our very planet and the survival of it. So, every person's voice also can be heard. Dr. King spent his life dreaming of a beloved community for all of God's children to live in together, and we owe it to future generations to never stop until that dream is fully realized.
Good afternoon, friends. Today we join together to honor the life and legacy of an American icon, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. More than ever in these trying days and times in the history of our world, his message of peace and justice for all is more relevant and much more urgent today, just as it was in years past. Many of us have lost sight of the importance of his dream and the importance of his words and their prolific meaning. Those timeless words urging us today, as in the past, to renew our commitment to the principles of Dr. King. That being a society who embraces each of us, every man, woman, and child of God, by the quality of their character and the content of their heart, not by their ethnicity, gender, social status, religion, nor the color of their skin. His message to us today is timeless and commanding. Let us in good conscience and with renewed resolve and vitality pass on that message to future generations to live by with equality, freedom, and with liberty and justice for all until his dream becomes a reality. Thank you.
Let me just start off by saying a big thank you to the Intercity Cultural League and Delaware State University, the home of the Hornets, for inviting me to celebrate with all of you today. And while I wish we could all be together in person as we have been for many years, on this day of service and inspiration, nothing should stop us from celebrating the life and the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. Because beyond the lasting tangible record of civil rights legislation he helped to achieve, he set a standard that we as Americans, all Americans, still look to for guidance, a culture of equality and service that we can always strive to honor. And today we could use a little of his courage because we've got some big challenges ahead, not just in the United States Senate where I'm privileged to serve you, but in answering who we want to be as a nation. And right now in state houses across our country, state legislators are enacting a wave of voting restrictions with the sole purpose of making it not easier to vote, but harder to vote. In 2021 alone, some 19 states enacted 33 laws restricting the right to vote, oftentimes specifically targeting Black Americans. It's moments like this, when our identity as the greatest democracy in the world is under attack, that we feel that fierce urgency of now that Martin Luther King talked about, felt half a century ago. After heroes like Martin Luther King literally risked their lives for us, we must uphold our moral obligation to protect the right to vote. And so today you have my word. I will do whatever it takes to live up to that legacy of service and uphold that obligation, because every American deserves full access to the ballot box. Let me leave you, if I could, with the words of Dr. Martin Luther King, that you probably heard this before, but it's worth repeating. The time is always right to do right. Think about that. The time is always right to do right. Whether it's in Washington, D.C., or Dover, Delaware, in work or in life, if you see wrong in this world, if we see wrong in this world, it's never too late to right it. And when the stakes are this high, when Americans' sacred right to vote is literally on the line across America, no barrier can stand, should stand in our way to do right. So as we begin this new year, let us honor his legacy by striving to make his vision of equality a reality for all Americans, and by always taking time to do right. And with that, let me say, take care, God bless you, and thanks so much for giving me the opportunity to serve you.
If I cannot do great things, I can do small things in a great way. This quote of Dr. King's has become a theme of what his birthday celebration is for so many of us. While COVID has put a damper on many plans, Martin Luther King Jr. Day has become a day of service. Days of service can help raise awareness, mobilize volunteers, and provide people with the chance to make new connections. In fact, Dr. King once said, life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? Sadly, our nation is divided. Too many people stand behind the lines of political parties, socioeconomic status, and skin color. Our society cannot thrive if people remain pitted against one another. We must follow Dr. King's example of communication, understanding each other, and working together in order to move forward as one people. While tensions in America are high, the quest for unity is not new. Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his I Have a Dream speech in 1963. 105 years before that, Abraham Lincoln, in accepting the Republican nomination for president, said, "A house divided against itself cannot stand." It's beyond time to see past our differences and unite as Americans. Americans don't erect barriers, they build bridges. They don't turn their backs on people in need, they create solutions to social inequities. They don't hold each other down, they lift each other up. In 1964, Dr. King said, "We must learn to live together as brothers or perish together as fools." As we gather to honor him almost 60 years later, I think it's time we heed his warning. Thank you for allowing me to join you today to honor Dr. King's legacy.
I am U.S. Senator Chris Coons, and I'm honored, I'm glad to be able to join with you today to celebrate the legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. There are direct connections between Dr. King's life of service and purpose and the work that the Inner City Cultural League does here in Dover, Delaware. You've created space, you've built and sustained space for younger generations to learn their history, to find their voice, to speak out for what they believe in, to get involved and to make a difference for our community and our state. Dr. King wasn't just an academic, he wasn't just a preacher, he didn't just study or preach to his own congregation about civil rights, he challenged our whole nation and set an example for the world. The one time he came and spoke here in Delaware at Howard High School, he stood in 1960 in front of a packed audience and spoke of the urgent need for justice and shared his vision of an inclusive nation for all people to be achieved through patient and persistent demonstrations and engagement. We've seen the power and unity in our state and across our nation. We've seen how profound change can be when we choose courage over comfort and justice over oppression. We did see also that a year ago on January 6th, when division and hate assaulted our capital, it led to one of the worst days in our nation's recent history. But we also saw how hope and unity can bring us positive change, how 2 historic elections produced state Senate seats in Georgia represented by a new generation of leaders, including the Reverend Raphael Warnock, who holds the pulpit once held by the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Even while our world has witnessed continuing racial oppression and opposition, so many more have pressed on in the hopeful spirit of what Dr. King taught. It's important that we here in Delaware continue to document, remember, and teach the history of civil rights and the legacy of Dr. King. That's why I continue to work with House member Jim Clyburn of South Carolina on trying to advance a bill that would expand the number of civil rights historical sites part of the National Park Service to include sites here in Delaware associated with the legal cases that helped lay the foundation of Brown versus Board of Education. There is so much more we can and must do together this year to protect and improve voting rights, to protect and improve opportunity for education, for housing, for advancement, and to work together to honor the spirit and the legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. Thank you.
Thank you to all of our dignitaries who have took time out to speak to us today and to, as they normally would come and give their remarks and encourage us today. So we want to thank all of our dignitaries for that. Dr. Blakey for that introduction of those people. We're going to, I do want to apologize for the technical difficulties that we've been having. You know, it's a little bit difficult to navigate this new world that we're in, all the technology and trying to keep up and do what needs to be done. So we do apologize for the little bit of difficulty that we have, but we're going to keep on and keep moving. Next, we have an introduction of our keynote speaker. It's going to be given by our Dr. Wilma Mashu, the President Emeritus of Delaware State University. Dr. Mashu.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I have the distinct pleasure of introducing our guest speaker, and believe me, it is a pleasure for me to do that. Now, they gave me a long bio to read for Dr. Cade, and I decided I'm not going to read that, so let me apologize to Dr. Cade ahead of time. But let me begin by saying Dr. Cade has been serving as the Chief Executive Officer and the Superintendent of our Capital School District right here in Dover, Delaware, since July of 2021. There are really only two things that I want to tell you about her this afternoon. If you don't remember anything else I say while I'm here, I want you to remember these two things. Dr. Cade has come to the Capital School District. Dr. Cade has come experienced, and Dr. Cade has come prepared. She's experienced, and she's prepared. Having received her Bachelor of Arts degree in Black Studies from the State University of New York in 1988, then 3 master degrees, one in African Studies, one as a reading specialist, and one in educational leadership from Long Island University. And then her Doctor of Education degree in Leadership and Administration in 2010 from New York University. She has continued to prepare herself academically by completing the Common Core Leadership Institute, the National Superintendents and Executive Leadership Superintendents Academies, and Cleveland State University's Education Policy Fellow Program as recently as 2020. She's prepared. But that's not all. She's experienced. She returned to this state in July after having served as Chief Academic Officer and Assistant Superintendent of the Sandusky City Schools in Sandusky, Ohio. Prior to that assignment, Dr. Cade actually worked in Wilmington, Delaware for almost a decade in the Christina School District, where she serves as the Director of Secondary Curriculum and Professional Development, as well as Senior Director of Teaching and Learning, K through 12. Other employment experiences include working at the College Board, you know, where our SAT college entrance tests come from. She's also an elementary school principal and educational consultant in several states, as well as a district-level administrator in what was the largest school district in the country, might still be, the New York City Department of Education. We could go on, and And you certainly should make every effort you can to get to know Dr. Cade and to learn more about her. But as I said before, she comes to Dover experienced and prepared. Dr. Cade has stated on many occasions that she believes our capital school district is the heartbeat of Delaware, and that our Senator Pride establishes the rhythm for all others in the first state to follow. Dr. Cade, as a proud product of the capital school district myself, I feel that same Senator Pride, and I am just as proud to present you as the very first African-American female CEO and superintendent of our capital school district. I want you all to give her a round of applause to show your support for Dr. Cade.
I want to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Woolman-Rashoot for such an eloquent introduction. And might I say, she's taught me so much in this short time of being here in the capital of our state, in which I've been received warmly by so many, and I continue to be humble, and I continue to be grateful for this reception. When I typically speak, I like to quote my favorite quote from the Bible: "Now abide faith, hope, love, these three, but the greatest of these is love." And if you followed my career, you'll find that I've always spoken about the need for love. And today, as we celebrate the memory of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., I want to echo his sentiments around the spirit of love. Of course, we celebrate service, and today should be a day of service, a day that we do serve our communities and our families, but it is also a day to remind us of the significant importance of love. And so I start by saying good afternoon first to my students, community leaders, city officials, clergy, friends, and family. It is a great honor to stand before you today in celebration of this special occasion in which we honor the memory of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And we celebrate the tenacious efforts of the Inter-City Cultural League and all of its members. Let's give them a round of applause. Their efforts to inspire hope in our youth while uplifting the vulnerable members of our communities is something that is noteworthy. First, I would like to take this opportunity to graciously thank Michael Brown for extending this invitation, along with the Inner City Cultural League, for allowing me to be a part of this 36th year anniversary. And when I think of 1986, 36 years ago, I joined my sorority, and I remember being very involved in educating migrant children in the local area in upstate New York. I remember running a NIPERC campaign to save the environment. I remember understanding better who I was as a person of African descent and joining the Black Student Union on my campus and helping to stage a demonstration against apartheid on Main Street. And so I remember 36 years ago, my role in being a part of a movement. As an educational leader with over 25 years of servant leadership in diverse school districts, I can honestly say that my tenure serving at the helm of the Capital School District has been characterized by the ethos of love and care that stems from a legacy of love that is rooted in this community. And it is this we want to celebrate today as we honor the memory of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. My message today will focus on how we collectively counteract the growing dissent in our community as a result of the trauma from the COVID-19 pandemic, but also some of the residue of some of the historical issues that our community and country has grappled with. What I am learning is that these perilous times, people's response towards each other is overshadowed by the symptoms of trauma that has been caused and underscored by this pandemic. When I was being interviewed for my role as superintendent of the Capital School District, I remember Dr. Mashoud being on that committee, but I remember those community members, they asked me this question. They said, what are you going to do about the growing concerns in our community related to youth violence? As I thought about my experience in the New York City public schools, and I reflected on my experience in Chicago public schools, and I thought about the work I had done in the city of Wilmington with the Christina School District, I thought about the overwhelming sense of hopelessness in certain neighborhoods that was spurred by higher rates of violence, higher rates of food insecurity, limited access to high-quality health care and education, higher rates of unemployment and underemployment. And I know from my personal experience as being a ward of the state that hopelessness leads to desperate actions. When I was selected as the Chief Executive Officer and Superintendent of the Capital District, I knew I must enact a vision to reopen schools and speak to the issues associated with the trauma of COVID and the historical issues in our communities that overshadow the legacy of love and the ethos of care that exists. The Capital School District reopened, spurring the audacity of hope to uncover the magic of new beginnings. We have 5 priorities this year, starting with care, communication, community, continuous improvement, and capacity building. The Capital School District Board of Education and I embraced 3 cornerstones of our core values, starting with excellence through equity, unity through love, and leadership through inclusiveness. Today, I want to connect the legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and encourage everyone at this pivotal time in our history and in our country and in this local community to lean in on the concept of unity through love and care. It is my belief we need hope today more than ever. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King said, quote, "Everything that is done in the world is done by hope," unquote. He said, we must accept disappointment, but never lose infinite hope. Hope should include, in my mind, helping other people excel. This is the basis for my service as the CEO and Superintendent of the Capital School District. It is appropriate during this time in our history in 2022 that we all regroup and remember the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voters' Rights Act of 1965, which changed the trajectory of equality of life for African Americans in America. Many today argue that these very important legislations are under attack. Today, we heard our legislators, the Honorable Lisa Blunt Rochester, we heard senators and our governor speak to these concerns today about these crowning legislative acts being under attack. And as an educator, I really feel compelled to mention Brown versus Board of Education, Topeka, Kansas, 1954, which overturned Plessy versus Ferguson of 1896. Highlighting these important legislations is a teachable moment for our youth, as we need to keep reminding them of how these and many historians recall these crowning legislations of the Civil Rights Movement. So, the Civil Rights Act ended Jim Crow, de jure, but we know as a nation that Jim Crow de facto did not end until African Americans, joined by compassionate whites, leaped into action characterized by, you got it, unity through love, to end injustice. So today we celebrate the Honorable Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who sacrificed his life. We are compelled to edify his legacy of love in our actions towards each other. On April the 3rd, 1968, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, quote, "For when people get caught up with that which is right, and they are willing to sacrifice for it, there is no stopping point short of victory." This is what we should strive to illuminate in 2022. It is that victory that we must embrace today, and it is that legacy of love rooted in the community enacted to overshadow the trauma of COVID and the residue of racial inequities in our society. As we embark on a new year, 2022, I want to take the liberty to remind us of what we can achieve when we have a servant's heart and are motivated by love to put our egos and selfishness aside for the betterment of the greater community. I want to urge us to think about the sacrifice, persistency, and the unity of individuals who planted a seed that would yield years of return on its investment. I want to go further and say that when we are documenting today, it is the reigniting of the birth of unity through love in the city of Dover that we are striving for. I am reminded of a quote by Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and this should be the foundation of all leadership. It is, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. We have to understand how connected we are as a community, as a state, as a nation, in order for us to move forward and overshadow this trauma and all of the social ills that we are currently facing. So on this day, I want to challenge each of us to commit to carry on a legacy of love birthed by the Honorable Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., which was undergirded by unity and amplified by Americans of both African and white descent in our nation from the 1960s. Today, I will ask each of us to take a pledge of unity through love. And so, I would ask that you think of the you in unity as you. You. And starting with you, when we look at the conditions of race relations in our country, we know that the divide is growing because of the lack of focus on unity through love. Therefore, today, as we honor the legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., I'm insisting that unity through love in the city of Dover, in the state of Delaware, and in our nation becomes the foundation that raises the quality of life for all of our community members. We have an opportunity to build on a rich legacy, to elevate excellence in our community. And for me, it starts with the education of our children. Isn't that what the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. wanted from us? Isn't that what he taught us? It is my belief that unity through love must be our commitment to advocate for our children and the vulnerable members of our community. I do not know about you, but I believe, Dr. Michoud, that in the heart, my heart not the civil rights activists that died sacrifice for you and I, then we would understand the importance of unity through love. So as we celebrate Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his birthday, it is important to note that his fight was one for humanity. The unity of blacks and whites through love to uplift the poor. As leaders, we must be the blessing we want to see in our community to safeguard our future. It depends on us. So, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. taught us in his actions, if you plant love and kindness, you will receive love and kindness. In fact, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King taught us and stated, quote unquote, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. So please, I'll ask, and Michael, if you could just, I have some pledges, if you can pass them out to the people here, and I'm going to ask the people that are with us, joining us virtually, that you appease me and join in on this pledge. Often when I speak, I believe in being interactive and having my community. It's sort of a part of our culture, right, Mr. Salda? It's sort of this call and response thing that we've adopted and adapted when we came from Africa. And so I'm going to ask that you all join me in taking this pledge as leaders, and that everyone that is home also joins in as I recite this pledge. And what I'll do is I'll state it, and then I'll ask that you repeat it with me. And so those who are with me today that are able to stand, not you, please stand with me, those who are able to stand. And I will ask that you read this pledge along with me. I will state it, and then I will ask you to restate it. And so, a pledge of unity through love. I will start. Today I pledge to demonstrate love and kindness in my actions towards others. Please repeat that. In all my endeavors, especially when people do not deserve my grace or consideration. As a leader, I pledge to embrace humility and accept responsibility for the things I can do to nurture a spirit of love in my environment by uplifting the humanity of others. I recommit to be the voice of those most in need of my advocacy. Children and vulnerable citizens. I commit to be a leader who is advancing a vision of unity through love. Give yourselves a round of applause. And so, as I close, I would like to end with another quote by the Honorable Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And of course, it is about love. Quote, love is the only force capable of transforming an enemy into a friend. Unquote. May God bless you. May you go out and serve, and may your service be edified by God's love. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Put your hands together again for Dr. Valicia King. It is truly an honor for her to be here today. And I'm honored because she's my boss. I've been employed I've been in Capital my whole entire life. I went all through school, and I'm in my 17th year as a paraprofessional in the Capital School District. I'm super proud that she is taking time to be about the community. And so one of the first things that I noticed about her, that she was out in the community, she was making friends and even engaging with students. And I think that's what really got me the most. So you can clap for that. Yes. She's not sitting behind her desk and not being found. She's very available and visible here in our community. We thank you, Dr. K, for that. Thank you so much. Also, I would like to thank Dr. Tony DePrima, Capital School District School Board member, for being present here today. Also, Anthony Morris, ICCL board member, thank you for being here today. And I do want to thank, of course, our ICCL staff, our Executive Director, Katrina Stroud, and Ruby Stroud, who is working on the technology course, which is not easy. So I'm grateful for them and the team for just, doing what we do. It's hard to get this together sometimes, but we got it done. So again, thank you all for coming out. We are grateful for you. Are you having some further remarks? Are you benedicting us? Okay, well, we have Barbara Rubin Salter coming back for the benediction. He is not singing.
Martin and I were born the same year, 1929. So I'll be 93 this year. Many of you may have heard me try to sing this song before. And it's about the early years of the civil rights and the many deaths that we had in a short period of time. Is anybody here? See my old friend Abraham? Can you tell me where he's gone? Well, he freed a lot of people, but the good, they die young. I just looked around and he's gone. Is anybody here? See my old friend John? Come on, Carlos, you can join me if you like. Can you tell me where he's gone? Well, he freed a lot of people, but the good, they die young. I just looked around and he's gone. Didn't you know the love they stood for? Didn't you know the love they had for you and me? Yes, we shall be free. Someday soon there's gonna be a new day. Has anybody here seen my old friend Bobby? Can you tell me where he's gone? Well, he freed a lot of people, but the good, they die young. I just looked around and he's gone. And it's about Martin. Did anybody here see my old friend Martin? Can you tell me where he's gone? Well, he freed a lot of people, but the good, they die young. I just looked around and he's gone. I thought I saw him walking up over the hill with Abraham, Bobby, and John. Thank you.
Thank you again. Let us pray. Father, we thank you for your goodness, your kindness, and your mercy. We thank you for everything that has been said and done in this place today. We thank you for each and every person who came out to be a part, to give us words, to be an encouragement to our organization and to our city. We ask that you keep us, and we ask that you continue to cover us as we go out from this place and into the world. Keep us from danger seen and unseen. And we'll forever give your name the glory, the honor, and praise. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you so much.